For 17 years, the FBI hunted a ghost. Between 1978 and 1995, a domestic terrorist they called the Unabomber mailed and planted 16 bombs, targeting university professors, airline executives, and computer scientists. 3 people were killed, 23 were wounded. The FBI's Unabomber task force, at one point involving 150 agents, had almost nothing. No face, no name, no motive they could understand. Then, in 1995, the Unabomber made an offer that put the FBI in an impossible position. Publish my manifesto in a series of major newspapers, and I will stop bombing. Refuse, and I will continue. After intense internal debate, the FBI and the Department of Justice authorized the Washington Post and New York Times to publish the 35,000-word document in full. The gamble worked, and the Unabomber was later identified and captured, never to be released. Theodore Kaczynski had an IQ in the 99.99th percentile. He had enrolled at Harvard at 16. He earned a PhD in mathematics from the University of Michigan and joined the faculty at UC Berkeley before disappearing into the wilderness. His bombings and the investigation that led to his arrest have been subject of documentaries and famous series. But the actual content of his manifesto, the ideas in that document, not just the crime surrounding it, has received far less attention in spite of the fact that the author was a mathematical genius with an IQ of 167 and a former professor at Berkeley. So in this 10-minute brief, you will understand the arguments behind that manifesto. Was it only ramblings from a madman, or was there some truthful and disturbing analysis from a man you would feel uncomfortable agreeing with? Watch this video until the end, and you will find out. Kaczynski's first major argument is that technology is totalitarian by its very nature, and crucially, he argued that this is not caused by any dictator or conspiracy. It is caused by the technical requirements of the system itself. From a high-tech society to function, its human components, meaning us, must be predictable and efficient. The system, he argued, must adjust people through education, psychological conditioning, and even medication to fit the needs of the machine, simply because the machine requires it. His most pointed example: we don't use cars because we freely choose them. Rather, we use them because the system restructured the world so that not having a car makes it nearly impossible to hold a job, access services, or participate in modern life. The choice was made for us before we were born. Every new convenience, he argued, is actually a new dependency that ends another piece of human independence. But for him, it was necessary to live the life his theory suggested was superior. See, Kaczynski had an IQ in the 99.99th percentile or higher. He had enrolled at Harvard at 16. He earned a PhD in mathematics from the University of Michigan and joined the faculty at UC Berkeley. He was a scientist, and the theory he had come up with had to be tested to the limits it was yet to reveal. So he built a primitive cabin in the Montana wilderness. No electricity, no plumbing, and attempted to survive on his own terms, hunting and growing his own food. By his own account, the experiment was deeply difficult. He couldn't fully escape the system he despised, and that failure, many psychologists believe, deepened his rage. Which takes us to another dimension of Kaczynski's case: the depth of his psychological instability. At the same time that he was a genius, he was by his own description profoundly antisocial, incapable of sustaining relationships, and tormented by a sense of alienation that preceded any ideological framework. At one point in his early 20s, according to his own journals, he sought a sex change operation, then walked out of the therapist's office in a wave of shame and self-disgust that he described as a turning point in his hatred for society. His theory and the life he decided to forge based on it were also, objectively speaking, a result of a severe psychological pain. The psychological heart of the manifesto is a concept Kaczynski calls the power process. He argued that human beings have a biological drive to go through a cycle of setting a goal, exerting serious physical or mental effort, and finally attaining that goal. In a pre-industrial state, this process was tied directly to survival, hunting, gathering, and building shelter. By automating our survival, Kaczynski claimed the industrial system leaves us with surrogate activities, artificial goals like pursuing hobbies, sports, or corporate status. He dismissed these as sublimation, arguing that they can never truly satisfy the human spirit because they don't impact our actual survival. The result, he claimed, is a modern epidemic of chronic boredom, anxiety, and a deep-seated feeling of powerlessness that no amount of entertainment can fix. One of the manifesto's most controversial and most discussed chapters is Kaczynski's psychological critique of modern leftism. He identified two primary psychological drivers in what he called the over-socialized person: feelings of inferiority and guilt. He argued that the over-socialized leftist has internalized society's moral codes so deeply that any independent or anti-social impulse produces intense guilt. To compensate, they seek a sense of power and self-worth by identifying with victims, championing causes only because the struggle satisfies a psychological need for control and resentful moral superiority. In his view, the modern leftist doesn't want to solve the world's problems. He wants to use the world's problems. He becomes, paradoxically, one of the system's most effective enforcers, demanding more regulation, more conformity, more ideological policing, while believing himself to be a rebel. But Kaczynski directed equally sharp criticism at conservatives. He argued that traditional conservatives are just as captured by the system as the left, because conservatives have consistently championed technological and industrial progress without grasping its consequences. In his view, you cannot preserve traditional communities, religious life, local culture, and the rhythms of natural human existence while simultaneously accelerating the very technological forces that dissolve them. He saw conservative advocacy for industrial growth as a fundamental contradiction, a defense of tradition with one hand while dismantling the conditions for tradition with the other. He had contempt for both sides. In his analysis, left and right were simply two factions competing for control of the same machine, neither willing to question the machine itself. Kaczynski's final and most radical conclusion was that the system cannot be fixed through reform. He presented what he called the laws of history, asserting that technological progress is a one-way street. He argued that you cannot keep the good parts of technology like modern medicine while discarding the bad parts like total surveillance, because they are all part of the same interconnected web. Because the system always grows and never retreats, he believed that political solutions like voting or regulation are delusions. In his view, the machine is a self-propagating organism that will eventually consume all human autonomy. This led him to his murderous conclusion that the only way to regain freedom was to cause a complete, violent collapse of the entire industrial base, a total reset, regardless of the human cost. Ted Kaczynski was arrested in April 1996. He died in federal prison in June 2023, having spent more than 25 years in a maximum security facility. His analysis contains observations that many serious thinkers across the political spectrum take seriously. The critique of technological dependency, the erosion of meaningful effort, the psychological emptiness of modern life. They are questions that philosophers, psychologists, and social critics have pursued for generations, and they are more relevant in the age of AI, social media, and behavioral engineering than they were in 1995. But his recipe was catastrophically wrong. Kaczynski was a man of exceptional intelligence, yet fell into the same trap as the great catastrophists before him, like Thomas Malthus, Paul Ehrlich, and countless others who constructed elegant, internally coherent frameworks predicting civilizational collapse, and were proven wrong by the one variable they could never model: human ingenuity and adaptation. They could not account for what they didn't yet know. Kaczynski's scientific training gave him tools. His severe psychological disturbances, his antisocial isolation, his inability to form attachments, his rage, his inability to tolerate ambiguity, turned those tools into weapons. The intelligence was real. The blind spots were catastrophic. A mind that is brilliant, broken, and entirely certain of its own conclusions can be a recipe for disaster. As we move into the age of genetic engineering, neural interfaces, and AI systems that manage human behavior at scale, his core question deserves serious engagement. What does it mean to be a free human being in a world increasingly shaped by forces we did not choose and cannot easily refuse? But what about you? Did you know about Ted Kaczynski's manifesto? Did you know about his history? Let us know in the comment section. And if you found this video valuable, subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell so you know as soon as we drop a new video. And if you want to stay ahead of our releases, click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen. See you in our next 10-minute brief.